Hillary Clinton getting a much-needed boost today, picking up a key endorsement, as Ed just mentioned, from the New York Times editorial board. But it also comes as a recent Bloomberg Des Moines Register poll shows 43% of Iowa Democrats describe themselves as socialist. Yet another potential problem as Mrs. Clinton tries to pull off a tight victory against Bernie Sanders. Let's bring in a supporter of Mrs. Clinton, Philip Levine. He's mayor of Miami Beach, Florida, and a Clinton campaign surrogate. Most people like to stay in Florida in January instead of come to New York City, Mr. Mayor. So it's nice to have you here in the cold weather as it is. What do you make of that read about 43% of Democrats in Iowa consider themselves to be socialists? Is that an issue for Mrs. Clinton?
No, I think we have to focus on the national polls. And of course, Secretary Clinton is way ahead in the national polls. You know, Iowa is very important. New Hampshire is very important. And of course, Secretary Clinton is there fighting for the people of Iowa.
Some are watching her tone to see if she's going to lean a little bit more towards Bernie Sanders to try to gather some of those that may be more sympathetic to socialist philosophies. You know, the DNC chair was famously asked about what's the difference between a socialist and a Democrat today. How would you describe it?
Well, I think it's most important to know that Secretary Clinton's resume, her experience is unbelievable. She's fit for the job, and she shows up for the interview. The other night in Iowa, we know what happened. We were all kind of thinking we're going to watch a rerun of All in the Family, but Archie didn't show up. And of course, it was a House divided with the Republicans. Secretary Clinton has the resume and the experience for this job. Now, Senator Sanders has brought a lot of great flavor to this campaign, make it very competitive. I'm an entrepreneur. I like competition. But I think that, you know, Senator Sanders' resume is not really right for this particular job.
Why is that?
Well, I think he'd be right if he was running for president of France. I'm not so sure that we are France.
So let's get back to that. So what is the difference between a socialist and a Democrat today?
I think what you would say, of course, is that France is a socialist country. The United States is a democratic capitalist country where there's opportunity for everybody. And what Secretary Clinton is really about is making sure that everybody gets opportunity, that people can go to college, that prescription drugs.
But isn't Bernie Sanders doing that too?
Yeah,
What's the major difference between the two?
I think the major difference would also be this, is that Secretary Clinton wants to build on what President Obama has created over the last 8 years. More opportunity for people, and more of a safety net. I think what Senator Sanders wants to do is tear it all down and start from nothing. Listen, the Republicans would love to have Senator Sanders as the candidate because, of course, we'll have a President Trump or whatever else.
You really believe it? If you're a Democrat and you're saying if it is Sanders that's representing your party, you believe that you would lose to a Republican?
There's no question about it, but I can tell you one thing. It's not going to happen. Secretary Clinton is way ahead in the polls. She is going to be the Democratic nominee.
We'll see what happens in Iowa. It's interesting, Ed mentions the Secret Service support as well as some of the turnouts at Bernie Sanders' event. I want to ask you a little bit about what's going on with the latest email, the chapter in the email controversy that still hangs over Mrs. Clinton. I had an interesting question asked of us today, which is, why don't Democrats care more about this? Why does this seem to be a partisan issue when it is an investigation that's being done by the FBI? They didn't say directly of her, but an investigation that includes her. Why isn't it more of an issue?
Well, it's a funny thing. I mean, I really don't know what the FBI is investigating. I don't know if you do or the Republican Party has a direct access to the FBI director, but I don't think so. Let's think about what that's about. Number one, those emails, when they were sent years ago, were not classified. All of a sudden, 3 days ago, they became highly classified because a Republican-controlled committee in the Congress decided that they were.
You know what's interesting about that is that the State Department came out over the last 24 hours and said, yes, we did say that they weren't classified, but now we're going to issue a probe and an investigation to see if maybe they were.
3 days before Iowa. Can you imagine this?
So do you think the State Department is leaning Republican? Is that what you're saying?
These emails went out to the highest-ranking Republicans, the highest-ranking Democrats, the highest-ranking military, and not one person said, hey, Secretary Clinton, those emails are coming from your personal server.
From what we know.
No one said that. But you know what's funny? You go to James Bond films. Remember Q in James Bond?
I don't know. You're taking me way back. Where's Q?
About Q. Q's in charge of communications. Let's bring in Q from the State Department and find out what their protocol was.
So you're not concerned about this at all?
No, because
you really
the people
feel
of
that it's not going to
America
impact
know,
her?
and they trust Secretary Clinton.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. Let me tell you what they trust.
The Washington Post ABC poll
know she can get the job done.
Of Democrats, that only in the mid-30s, I believe it's 36%, I'm going off of memory here, 36% say that she's honest or trustworthy. So if 36% say she's honest or trustworthy, that means the majority of Democrats don't think she is, Mr.
You know what
Mayor.
they believe? They trust that Secretary Clinton can get the job done because she has a history of getting the job done. And in today's day and age, when you saw that Republican debate, literally it was like a jellyfish fight. I mean, did you notice all those senators talking in Senate speak?
That's a good Miami Beach reference, jellyfish. I haven't heard that one.
Well, it was spineless. They didn't know how they were fighting, and the fact of the matter is people couldn't understand what they were saying. And, of course, the main candidate left the stage, and he had his own debate.
So you feel confident about Mrs. Clinton, results in Iowa moving forward? You have no questions
question about it. I think she'll win Iowa. I think that she'll probably win New Hampshire. Matter of fact, the fact that she's doing so well in New Hampshire when you have a senator from the state next door is very encouraging. But nationally, Secretary Clinton is going to be the next president of the United States.
Nice to have you on our program as we continue to look at all the candidates and where they're going next. Mr. Mayor, great to have you. Look forward to having you back as
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. John?